so much, everyone, for coming out today. Really excited about the next topic, as it's one of the areas I've been diving into at Collapse Currency. Cool. So just to start off, I've got some great panelists to unpack this topic for us. So maybe starting with Christina, do you want to just tell us about your project and what it impacts for Web3 social?
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name's Christina Beltramini. I lead growth for Lens Protocol. For those that aren't aware, Lens Protocol is decentralized social media. And so ultimately, it's built with the premise that we should own our identity and all the content that we put online. So just as we self-custody our crypto assets with DeFi, so Lens Protocol was actually built by the Aave companies, taking that same notion to having more ownership and control of all the content that we put online. Which for us is like everyone here is a social media user. We spend over 2 hours a day, but ultimately it's these big platforms that control how our data is used and how we interact with our followers and audiences.
Hi everyone, my name is Charles Wang. I'm the co-founder of Galaxy. So we built an on-chain credential data network with a plug-and-play self-serve dashboard for all Web3 projects, companies, and brands to build their on-chain loyalty programs. We have over 2,000 companies that are using Galaxy to engage with their audience, to grow their user base, to improve their user retention. So the biggest features for us were campaigns and Quest. We're the co-creator of Arbitrum Odyssey and Optimism Quest from last year. Very excited to be here.
GM, everybody. Wonderful to see all of your smiling faces. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Evan McMullen, and I am the co-founder and chief instigator over at the Disco. So you all are probably familiar with wallets that allow us to own and control our financial assets, like fungible and non-fungible tokens. But in the inimitable words of Tyler Durden in the movie Fight Club, you are more than the contents of your wallet. So Disco allows you to use the keys that you already have to own and control data that's written about you, from your t-shirt size to your favorite color to your credit score, and carry it with you from app to app, across chains, into physical space and back, because we believe that you are more than the contents of your wallet and should be able to express all of yourselves in Web3.
Awesome. Really great introduction. So my first, main question here is, what is the 10x improvement that Web3 social provides over Web2 platforms like Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, etc.? So I don't know who wants to kick that off.
Hell yeah. All right. So in short, never fill out a form again. I'm sure that you guys, when you signed up for this very event, you had to fill in your email address and your name and what school you're part of and what your wallet address is, etc. And that usually is the first experience that we have with most apps. We start by filling out a form. Same with parties, same with new jobs. But we have the ability to own and control data that is reusable. So we should be able to enjoy autofill for everything, meaning we can pick up our data and move it to repopulate a new app anytime we decide. So that's what capabilities like Lens Protocol allow us to do, to own and control our followers, our following, our content, what we say about ourselves and what others say about us, so that we don't have to spend the 11.5 hours a year that Americans do filling out forms.
Yeah, I think same idea. I think data ownership and token incentives are the biggest problems that currently Web2 platforms didn't solve properly. And just like what Evan is saying, and also Lens is building, owning your social relationship, owning your social identity, social data, also with the nature of tokenization, because I see token as a way it's built for the community. So letting your users or letting the community to own the data, own the relationship, and also share the incentives to build the platform together, that's a fundamental difference from Web3 platforms and Web2 social platforms.
I think, a lot of people here, I'm sure, are Gen Z. You guys all create content. You're all looking to monetize that content. And the idea that you can actually have direct-to-fan access and direct-to-fan minting. And so the concept on Lens is not only do you have all the benefits where you can take your followers, for example, from a TikTok equivalent to an Instagram to a Spotify and be able to aggregate and finally see, who are my most engaged fans, but also gives people the opportunity to be able to collect content. And so Bradley Freeman over here actually went to Penn, and he has a great way of putting it where Web2 social taught us all about the like. It taught us about the follow, it taught us about the comment, but Web3 social is actually teaching us about collecting content. And so that has a dual benefit as well for a creator, and especially if you look at the music industry, right? They've never had direct-to-fan access. Being able to post something on Twitter and allow your fans to be able to actually collect it is incredibly powerful. And so we're very bullish on the creator economy and what's next there, and we think Lens is going to play a very impactful role in having more equitable splits with these platforms today.
Awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of those opportunities exist, but one of the biggest obstacles I see is distribution. Many creators have already built like a significant following on Web2 platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. So how do you think about the switching costs from moving from these Web2 platforms to Web3?
I'll take this because I think it ties to what I said earlier. It's an opportunity. So I was actually at TikTok for a few years before anyone was even thinking about TikTok. Then ultimately it became a tsunami that no one could ignore. But the idea was those people that were early actually benefited from the platform because there was low social capital inflation. It was easy to break. So I would say for creators that are really looking to grow their following, they need to be mindful that Web3, we're not at mass adoption yet, so they won't necessarily be meeting their existing audiences on Lens, but it's an opportunity to really kind of create a new audience, and it's a Web3 fan, a Web3 consumer, and actually start to grow your following before anyone else. So while there are hindrances in being able to migrate your existing followers, you're going to be meeting new people and new audiences and a new fan.
I would also say 10 seconds of real talk. Guys, Web3 is a rounding error. On a good day, there's 300,000 wallets that interact with the Ethereum main chain, and Twitter has 450 million users. And so right now, the switching costs are extraordinarily high because to come play where we hang out, you have to manage private keys. So in order for us to take seriously what it means to migrate an entire community of human beings that don't already, know what tokens are and feel comfortable handling cryptographic key material, we need to meet people where they are and design experiences that do not require this level of technical complexity to get started. So when I think about the switching costs, from a Web2 ecosystem where you already have an audience into Web3, not only do we need to address the user experience challenges, but we also, to Christina's point about having an opportunity, need to think about what networks we can bootstrap. How can we vampire attack Web2 communities and, take their ecosystem in total and migrate it? We can even look to the 1970s for cool examples about how this has been done. So for example, in the advent of the credit card, I think it was Wells Fargo sent out a whole bunch of cards with, a $2,000 credit limit to people in a California community, essentially bootstrapping the network of credit card owners on top of the public network of the US Postal Service. So we in Web3 need to get creative. How do we find the places where people already hang out, and how do we migrate them? Whether that's being able to observe the front end of a social media site and strip out all of your followers and blocked other users and those that are following you so that you can migrate those usernames into a new context like Lens. Or how might we take advantage of off-chain data that can move seamlessly from one context to another so we can pack up our data from Web 2 and carry it with us into Web 3 contexts that can interact with smart contracts. So I'm here for the switching costs, but first we've got to get realistic. We don't need a bigger club if there's no line standing outside of our party to get in.
Yeah, for us, we're in a little bit different sector because we work with the projects and brands and help them engage with their audience. In our experience, especially for the past 6 months, a year, we actually reached out and talked to a lot of traditional consumer brands and franchise to see, how can we offer a Web3 solution for them to better engage with their audience. For example, we're running loyalty campaigns, loyalty programs for 2,000 companies, but this year we're actually talking to some traditional brands and see how can we empower their existing loyalty brands into into a Web3 ready platform. So right now, the biggest challenge for them is they don't see the direct incentives except for the data part, the data interoperability. So, for example, if I'm an agency of a talent, if I own a talent agency, I want to switch to a Web3 powered platform, a social platform to engage with my audience. I don't. Right now, the Web2 solution cannot solve some problems like, say, I listened to your music on Spotify. I went to your concert, and I also purchased your merch, a T-shirt on your merch shop. But I'm not able to connect all of this to one individual profile. I don't have this access to see this complete data cycle or the life cycle of a user behavior. So, and to them, switching to, for example, we pitched about, switching their membership card into NFT, changing their point system into tokens, but none of them, really attracted them unless it can bring, either improve a lot of productivities or bring them direct business benefits. So there is still something, I think, for us, we're still experimenting, and we're actively working with a lot of brands to see how can we find the ultimate solution to bring all of their users into Web3 users, become Web3 users.
Yeah, makes sense. And then for Evan and Christina, I think you brought up some important issues around consumer onboarding in terms of bootstrapping networks, user experience. Can you tell me a bit more about how that's informing your go-to-market strategy in terms of how you're trying to kind of propagate your networks in Web3?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to kick this off. So right now, Disco is a bring your own EVM compatible keys web app experience, which means we are focused on serving those who are already in this community who would like to use their keys for more than pushing money around publicly. And so to play more interesting coordination games than OpenSea collection management and group chat with bank account, we need to know more about one another, right? What communities are you accountable to? What DAOs have I voted in? What events have you showed up to? What tokens have I minted from the contract? So being able to provide contextual on and off-chain data to enrich the community interactions that we already have in Web3 has really been our focus. So using credentials rather than on-chain tokens allows us to not have an unfettered secondary financial market to buy your way into a community. So a lot of Web3 communities don't want people to be able to just buy their way into membership. Instead, you either earn it, you show up, you participate. And so being able to document proofs of non-financial work in a form that cannot be bought and sold and is not public by default has really sort of been the kernel of value that we're bringing to these communities. And our thesis really is pretty simple. Things should do stuff, right? We need our digital assets that are able to unlock experiences, perform functions for us that we couldn't do before, because flexing is not the apex of utility. And right now, for most of Web3, that's most of the experience that we can enjoy from things like NFTs, unless there are secondary utilities that rely upon them. So as we think about our growth, first we need to make relevant more kinds of coordination games in Web3, and then later on this year we will be introducing custodial data backpacks so that you can start off with a username, password, phone number. You can basically take off the training wheels and upgrade that backpack into a non-custodial one. Then you can choose to fund your wallet and continue that journey of progressive decentralization to be a fully fledged degen like everyone here. But right now we often see that those user journeys that start with key management are really difficult and quite steep for a majority of audiences.
So you made a great point, Evan, that Web3 is a rounding error for now. But in terms of Lens Protocol, our focus is creators and showcasing value. And so what is the value that this new technology can bring to you as a creator? And so the way we think about our go-to-market is making sure that, we are a protocol, so it's very different to thinking about a social media platform. It's about having different experiences built on top of Lens using the smart contract modularity that we have that really showcase that value. So how do we change the notion where it's all about reach and likes right, to something that's more about depth. So making sure that we have tools where creators can actually monetize as a micro creator, where creators can have utility of transporting their social graph anywhere within the Web3 ecosystem. And our thesis is that, where creators go, audiences will flow, right? We've seen that before, and this technology is really about, that next unlock for the creator economy. And so making sure that we have the tools and experiences so that when we're in private beta at the moment with 100,000 users, but creators have made over $300,000 on Lens Protocol already, which is, a lot more than people make from a viral video on TikTok, right? By finally allowing tools for more depth. And so ultimately then down the road, audiences will come once we've figured out all the issues around onboarding, and, hopefully we're in a different place now versus the bear market. But, that's our thesis.
Cool. I want to build on the point around Web3 being a rounding error. And, we're just starting to see now some of these traditional brands move into the space. So where do you think this is going to land? Are decentralized social platforms going to replace Web2 platforms, or is there going to be a coexistence?
I mean, my grandma is not going to move off Facebook onto Lens this week. I don't think we'll work on that. But for a majority of those, especially who are in school now and who are younger, I think that the idea of digital ownership is much closer to their experience than our growing up on MySpace. And so the idea of portability from one platform to another is probably less foreign, is going to become less foreign. When I think of sort of the way forward with Web3 social, it is again limited by our ability to meet the market where it is right now and to be able to serve in an appropriate way. I think laws like GDPR and CCPA will increasingly help us understand that NFTs are not an appropriate vessel for data about human beings that needs to change and evolve. Our identity is not fixed and public and permanent and bound to one chain, and neither should the data that describes us be. We need to be able to express the parts of ourselves that are relevant to any context, regardless of the app that we're using, the space that we're entering, the brand that we're interacting with. And so I think it's highly likely that we will start to use public blockchains as great timestamps and places to store data that requires global public availability in perpetuity. But if everyone on Earth and in space with an internet connection for all time does not need access to data, a blockchain is a suboptimal place to put it, and I think we're going to start to see that in Web3 social.
Well, I think in the long term, Web3 platforms and Web3 social platforms and Web2 social networks will coexist. Actually, I think eventually the end goal, since I'm the builder in Web3 space, I believe the future of Web3 where the ownership of user identity, user data, user relationship. But eventually, probably all the Web3 social platforms, it doesn't feel differently for users. They can still use it, create their account, post the content as easy as how they use Twitter, how they use traditional social platform right now. But fundamentally, the value creation, the value transfer within the ecosystem are fundamentally making the difference. And also the counter, the censorship, and also just how everyone interact with others in this social platform makes a difference. But fundamentally, the user experience shouldn't be affected because of this Web3.
Actually, to underscore something you said right there really quick that I think is really valuable, right? We are people. We are not bound to underlying protocols. We use Zoom every single day to talk to people on video chat, and we don't talk about how crispy the TCP/IP is or how that HTTPS is really smooth today, right? So, for most people, they don't think about the protocols that make their apps run. Most people in this room probably could not name the protocols upon which Instagram is built. And so I think it is highly likely that as we move forward, we will contemplate the experiences that bring us delight and value and not the underlying technical protocols that make them possible. But right now, we don't have a lot of those apps. And so all we have to talk about are the underlying protocols.
As our head of marketing says, blockchain in the back, party in the front. So that's exactly what Evan has said. But there's only 2 or 3 social media platforms that anyone really uses, right? And why? Because we're locked in. They have these walled gardens. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, like anything that becomes a competitive product to them, they just build in as a feature. So we don't fundamentally have choice in where we can go if we want to meet our audiences. And so while I do think there will be a period of coexisting, I think there's a few trends at the moment, especially around creators and users and portability, that is really going to drive people to Web3, because there should be better experiences down the road that can be built because we'll have more choice. And I think that for me is fundamentally like where I see Web3 taking over from Web2, as well as because it's not the platforms in Web2, right? They have to speak to shareholders. They're unable to do proper revenue share with creators. I think the tides are really going to shift, and there's going to be a few different kind of trends in why Web3 social ends up winning out.
And then when you think about what is the killer app or the delightful experience that's going to bring mass adoption to these social protocols, what comes to mind? Is there any particular types of apps you see that could be differentiated and really bring in an audience?
I think it's these net new models that aren't possible on Web2 rails. So, creators being able to directly access their fans and monetize as easily as a tweet. I think that's just scratching the surface in what's possible. But when you remove intermediaries and you have, which take a 90% fee, right? Essentially, Facebook makes $100 billion. They have a $1 billion creator fund, right? That's nothing. You have all this value that's accruing there, and being able to share it in different economic models that's unlocked by the blockchain is going to be really, really powerful.
I'm going to go back to this sort of platitude I said earlier, like things need to do stuff, right? I think most of the people in this room probably do not use a Web3 decentralized application every single day. And that is because, we do not have Web3 apps that bring us serotonin. We are all dopamine addicts because the underlying infrastructure of Web3 is not sufficiently strong to support stable experiences that can be the same, the same expectation, the same user journey every time we go back. And so we are addicted to airdrops and hacks and crypto Twitter. And instead of being able to enjoy the more stable experiences of apps like Instagram, like Reddit, where although we get a lot of dopamine from there, we know it's going to be the same experience every time we go back. It's going to provide the stability that we're seeking. And so in order for us to really, contemplate the delight of everyday applications, we need to hang out in the places where people already are. We need to remove friction from the user journeys they already lead and add delight and value to what they were trying to do anyway. The only reason that Ponzi's work is because we are paying people to hang out there. But if we want to provide really valuable experiences, have a reason for people to open their Web3 dApps every single day, we need to contemplate the intentions that cause them to use regular apps normally, right? And that's because you're getting paid, you're getting laid, you're saving time, you're having fun, someone's making you. And for the most part, Web3 apps are not really contemplating all of these different vectors of adoption outside of airdrops. And so in order to build for the humans, we need to think about what delights the humans. Where do they spend their time now? And how can we better serve them in a way that they're used to?
I actually think the next killer app in social sector probably will be games, or social media with gamification, because I think the way how games can offer in terms of user experience, and also especially with some Web3 feature, the token incentives, it can really quickly get a lot of adoption from the Web2 audience, Web2 consumers. For example, Steppen, right? Last year, nobody expected, and a lot of people actually didn't realize the social factor of Steppen. We actually see a lot of people, they're sharing their running data, running achievements. It's actually a social network. It's not just a play to earn, in my opinion. And it built a specific circle for you to show off your achievement, and then meanwhile you can earn from it. So, is it Ponzi? Probably yes, but also it's really a quick way to quickly catch eyes from mainstream audience and to become like the killer app for for non-Web3 users in the short term at least.
Yeah, so Charles, building on that, I'm pretty excited about like the fast casual gaming apps as well. But we haven't seen a longevity. Like obviously there was a crash with StepN. So what do you think the next set of apps that are in that vein can do to have more longevity with consumers?
Yeah, I think say if there's any traditional game producer, who has already built very successful games for Web2 audience, for example, Fortnite or Blizzard, if they build a game or apps like a Pokemon Go, right? That can also be has a lot of social factor there, but also with its nature of gamification and potentially some integration with Web3, it can really kick off. Probably will work in the long term as well. We just don't know.
And I think as well, it could kick off. It doesn't necessarily need to be an app built on Lens Protocol. It could be an app that connects to Lens Protocol because Lens is actually an open social graph. And so when you think about it, it really is just access to a database, right, of who people are connected to, what they're doing on social. And so a gaming application could easily create some extremely interesting features by using network effects that are happening in the Lens Protocol ecosystem and building features that are built on those network effects inside the game to make it more social. So I can go into the metaverse, right, and I can find Evan because I've connected with her on Lenster, which is the Twitter equivalent, but I'm automatically surfaced her when I join, a different metaverse application. So I think this is where we see the composability and the growth hacking of different Web3 protocols and applications together to be able to build that, that super product that really showcases the value.
Yes, composability, the name of the game, Christina.
Exactly.
So, when we think about the way that we are able to move through digital space in Web3 now, we can collect tokens, public transferable proofs of our activity, sometimes non-transferable, not a great idea, we can talk about that later. But at Disco, our view is that we should be able to take that delight and active collection to any space, physical or digital, regardless of the base chain. So right now, when you move through the world, you're creating and throwing off all kinds of awesome data that proves you're not a bot. You opened the door to come in here. Data that proves that you like soy milk based on the latte that you ordered this morning. Data that proves that you are skipping class to be here and hang out with us right now. But you're creating all this data and you have nowhere to put it. You have no way to carry it with you. And so Disco's data backpack enables you to live your life like a video game where you can collect all of the loot, the proof of the things that you've done throughout the day, and you can take it with you, decide where you want to share it, and use it to unlock privileges or build experiences for other people based on what they have inside of their backpacks. So the first step to being able to gamify more things is that we need to recognize more inputs as relevant to gameplay. And that can be things like walking around, it can be things like coming to a conference here, it can be things like, turning in your paper on time for your next exam or whatever. But that is sort of the beauty of off-chain data, is that we can encompass any kind of human expression or action in a verifiable proof and treat it like a non-transferable token.
And I think I'm just going to comment, that's very important because the applications that we're competing with if we want mass adoption is Web2 applications that have all this data that they've been collecting from us for the last 10 years. But now we can rebuild this and still provide, and this is why I'm very bullish on verifiable credentials and how they'll tie in with Lens. Well, we can bring that data on-chain, attached to our Lens profile, and provide these applications and builders with the same rich data, but we can do it in a way where we control that and we decide what we want to share, and we can keep it off-chain but have it read on-chain to our baseline social profile primitive.
Very cool. So building on what goes on-chain and what goes off-chain, can you talk about each of your projects' approach and how do you balance considerations around privacy, user experience in making those trade-offs?
I'll start on this one.
Yes, we are the on-chain, off-chain sisters. Christina, please start.
So Lens Protocol has, the baseline things built on chain. So your profile, and when someone follows you, that's also on chain, although we are exploring ways to potentially have private social graphs, which I think will be a very interesting area. And then when you post content on Lens, you can decide whether or not you want to make that collectible and have it on chain. And there's pros and cons of all of that. But I do think that you at least need to have, these baseline primitives on chain to be able to unlock the composability of Web3 and portability of those main features. But you can make that a lot more robust by adding off-chain data and having it read by your profile.
So Lens is sort of the yin to Disco's yang. Lens, helps us think about that which is on-chain, public, immutable, and often transferable when it comes to sort of individual NFTs. And Disco, in your data backpack, you carry around verifiable credentials that are a little different than fungible or non-fungible tokens. These off-chain attestations are just simple JSON blobs. They're statements written by one party about another and signed by the person who said them. They are tamper evident. They can be revoked or set to expire. So they're much more appropriate for data that needs to change and evolve that describes us as humans, because we change and evolve. Verifiable credentials can be written by more than 150 different kinds of keys. So they can be written by Bitcoin keys, Ethereum keys, PGP keys, Tron keys, you name it. And they can be read by anybody with an internet connection on Earth and in space. And so in this way, verifiable credentials are chain agnostic. They are web agnostic. They're a way for us to use our keys like a personal notary stamp and pass notes with anybody else that we want and ensure that that data is relevant, valid, and intact. And so when we think about what belongs off-chain, we believe that data that describes human beings that is benefited by changing and evolving, such as your job, your relationship status, your favorite color, your food allergies. And also, at Disco, we have invented the idea of consent for Web3. Right now, if I know your public address, I can map any token to it that I want. Unsolicited nudes, illegal content, you name it, you can't stop me. But with Disco, when you receive a verifiable credential, you first have to choose to take custody of it, to choose to add it to your data backpack, and then to choose where and when you would like to share it. So for all things that require global public availability and perpetuity, a blockchain is a beautiful place for that. And for everything else that does not require that level of publicity, might need to change or evolve, or would benefit from having the option to be private, we have verifiable credentials and Disco.
Well, for Galaxy, we have three different approaches. Because of the nature of our platform, we provide a dashboard for brands and projects to build their own loyalty programs. For example, if I'm a decentralized exchange, I want to design some quest like, for example, I swap $100 on my exchange, but I also want to see if you have voted on my recent proposals. Also, I want to see if you follow my Twitter account. And you have to meet all of those three requirements in order to get NFT rewards or some kind of status in my community. We provide this plug-and-play self-serve dashboard for brands to build this very easily. So first approach is every brand they use Galaxy, they will need to first upload their data source. So the data source we have different ones. We support Subgraph. We support their direct API integration. We also support on-chain data automatic verification. For example, the numbers of tokens you hold, the numbers of NFT, what kind of NFT you hold, how long you've been holding that. And also, we support a lot of off-chain data sources. For example, we directly tap into Twitter integration, Twitter API, Twitter Enterprise API, and also Discord API and GitHub to track your activities on different platforms. But all of those are added directly by the projects because they want to run loyalty programs for this. Because of this. So currently, Galaxy has a total of 37 million unique addresses connected to our product called Galaxy ID. Galaxy ID also allows you to connect to your Twitter account, Discord account, GitHub, and email. And now we have 1.5 million verified Twitter account connected. Because of the nature of the loyalty program, how it works, projects want to see your activities in my Discord, but also on-chain. So when users engage with this quest and campaigns, they're opt-in to share this data with partners. And the last thing is we have we have another product called Galaxy Passport, which is an on-chain KYC solution. This is probably currently one of the largest on-chain KYC solution in the space. We have 80,000 verified individuals. So for this data, we cannot see the data at all. Every data is encrypted, and when partners or developers who wish to integrate this data inside of their apps, they're required to use we have a product called Galaxy ID SDK, which users will decrypt that data with their own password and then authorize to share that data. And then we cannot see that data, but if you agree to share that data with developers, then the developers can use your data for their integration. But that's only for our Galaxy Passport product.
I think you made a really interesting point there about on-chain social proof. And how that can be used in Web3. And so the way we look at it as well is, when you can collect content, you can actually showcase, social proof. I discovered something early. I am, this creator's, 10th most engaged fan across, all the different social ecosystem products. And I think that's really powerful to help you discover other users, to showcase your clout. And so that's where the on-chain part is really, really interesting because you can prove that. Although you can do it with attestations as well, there is something about being able to see that data fully on-chain, like how much am I contributing to this creator's revenue or, enabling them to discover new audiences. I think, being able to attach that to your social profile is very powerful.
And just to provide a little of additional context there, to Christina's point, it is extremely powerful to be able to see the impact of your expressions on chain. And of course, your on-chain tokens are not the only way that you can incite that a smart contract or on-chain logic. So let's say you have, whether it's a KYC proof, a proof of boat ownership, a proof that you're a Penn student, a proof that you're a member of the Penn blockchain club. You can use off-chain credentials to unlock on-chain logic. You can have a permissioned DeFi pool, an NFT mint open only to those who are here without requiring people to have specific tokens in their wallets. So one thing at Disco that we've built recently with our friends over at MetaMask is the ability to generate a proof off-chain to pass that little signature to a smart contract rather than in the entirety of a piece of data, and essentially to get a thumbs up from the smart contract that you're allowed to interact. And so to Christina's earlier point about composability, bringing data from Web 2 to inform our Web 3 experiences is, I think, the next sort of large unlock in scaling these abilities. We need more data to play more kinds of coordination games, and right now all we have on chain is still pretty limited as we wait for ecosystems like Lens and Galaxy to eat the rest of the world.
Awesome. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for coming out today and having this great conversation. So yeah, thank you to all the panelists and everyone watching this today.
And if anyone wants a Lens profile, we're still in beta, but come find this gentleman over here in green and we will whitelist you for one. Maybe add a data backpack, and I'm not sure.
Yeah, for us, if any projects want to utilize Galaxy for their loyalty program or loyalty campaigns, we can expedite the access for you. I'll be around.
Awesome. Yeah, follow us at DiscoXYZ on Twitter. Check out our pinned tweet to join the private beta, swag.disco.xyz if you want to take your data backpack shopping and use your reputation to buy one of these sweet hats. And we will see you all in the metaverse. Thank you guys so much for having us today.